Alright guys, so if you have a 2013 to 2016 Nissan Altima and you're looking to put an air filter in, this video is here to help you out here today. So thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and especially subscribe. Let me know you guys like what I'm doing, and that way I can keep putting out more videos for you. If you have any questions or concerns, of course, always let me know. You know, I was always there helping you guys out. So I've already kind of pre-started the job here, so I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about, tell you what I've done already. So the first thing, of course, is taking this off, and it seems like it may be a little bit daunting at first, but really it's not that bad. All it really is 3 screws right over here. In case you're wondering the size, it's a 10 mil. Well, I got a little glare on there, but that's all right. You know what I mean, 10 mil, right? So on the 10 mil, you just take these 3 screws off. Now, once I took them off, a little caught off guard for a second because it still wouldn't quite lift, and I'll show you why. All you really got to do, though, is give it a good tug, and it'll come right off. But what threw me off was this right here. As you can see, there's just a little rubber grommet right here, and that goes on to this screw right there. All that does is hold it in place and keep, if the screw should happen to break or get loose or anything like that. So just give it a good tug, it'll come right off. Don't rip it off, obviously, but just give it a good tug. Now I'm just going to put this down for 1 second. The second thing I did already is I took off the little bracket that goes around here. So you need a channel locks for that. Let me show you there. This went around this little box right here. This is going to be coming off of the car. Alright, so this comes off altogether, and there's going to be a modification for your K&N air filter. I'll show you that in a bit. But all this does is it goes right into the air tube. And once I took it off with my channel locks, just so that just squeezes right in. Alright, don't try and do it by hand. It's hard to do by hand, as you probably just saw. But then you pull that right out, and then this comes out of here. Now you'll notice we're going to actually take that off completely because, again, that's got to come off eventually. Down here is another one of these brackets just like this, but a smaller black one. So again, we're just going to take our channel locks. We're going to get into here. We're going to loosen it, and we're going to pull that right off. We're going to let it go right on there. And that's it. Just to show you guys what the bracket looks like. That's it there. Alright, so here's the next steps we're going to work on here. So over here, you see we have 3 main things. We're going to try and take off the tube, at least loosen it out. Now this here, we have to take off the screws. There's one here and one back here, and it's just a regular Phillips. So you can see, let me just get you a better, there you go. And that actually is going to bolt onto here. You see right there? Then we're also going to take off just the clamps, one down here. This one we could just do with a regular flathead. And we got to take out the one down there. That one, you're going to get a flathead in there unless you got a really short stubby flathead. It's going to be a pain. So instead I'm going to use a socket. And the socket I'm going to use is going to be an 8 mil. You can see I have it right here, 8 mil. And we're going to use that to pull that off. Then once we get all that off, the tube should come out. And that eventually is going to get replaced with this here. And then from there, we'll go on to our next steps, which is going to be taking the box out itself. So you get the idea. This is pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to do a closer up angle for you guys. Let's get our flathead first, and we'll pull this off. Now, of course, since you're going to have the 8 mil out, and I'm just going to do this here. I'm just going to rather just stick the 8 mil on and go ahead and do something. Now we're going to do down here as well. Get that right onto it. Now it's kind of tight to work with, so you're going to need a little bit of patience, but you can do it, it'll be all good. So we got everything off, and as you can see, that comes right off the throttle body. But a couple things you'll notice, there's a couple notches there. That's what was holding it in and what was making it difficult, because I was wondering why it wasn't coming off. But as you can see, it's just a regular kind of clamp, and that's it. That's all that was holding it on. Because of those little clamps that are down there on the throttle body, that was creating a bit of the problem. Now what we're going to do though is we're going to take off these screws right over here. Again, those are just standard Phillips, so I'm just going to set up here. And that's all pretty straightforward, so you just grab your Phillips. Get me the tube, give myself some room. So we're going to modify that slightly because there's not enough room here to get the screwdriver off. So we're going to try and get this lid out. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to loose this kind of wire that's running here. This is the wiring harness. So we're going to loosen that off. Just get another channel locks in there. Clamp it down. Pull out. And there's another one here. That one, you can't exactly follow that same process because it's kind of like in a bracket. I'll show you here. You see it right in there. It's inside there, so getting the channel locks is virtually impossible. So we're going to try and do it by kind of prying it. We're going to pry that by grabbing the flathead, which I have over here, and we're going to push in one side and pull half of it out. And the other half, we're going to kind of twist it and get the whole thing out. There. Done. Easy. Now we got to see about getting this box out. I did open it earlier, but I'll show you there's a couple clamps that hold it in all around. So all you do is loosen the clamps first. That's pretty easy, straightforward. Once you get the clamps, this comes right off. And it kind of holds on the back. We're going to take our little air filter out and go aside. Let's take a look at the back and see what's holding that on. That just clamps right in. So, cool. Be careful not to break it though. But it's just two pieces that punch right into it. So you're going to want to go with it with caution. Now we've got room to take this out. And of course, there's always one screw that's always being found. We already encountered two, would you believe? But this one here, although it's got a Phillips, just got to give it some elbow grease into it. Get that right off. Alright, so now this sensor is going to come right out here. Remember, that's going to eventually go in to your new filter. So put that aside very carefully. You don't want that to get damaged at all. Okay, so we've investigated a little bit, and I found that really there's a couple things to point out. There's one bolt right here. That's really the only bolt I seem. I can't seem to find any other bolts, which is a good sign. There's this piece here, which is an exit tube. So this tube here we have to kind of remove from this piece. There we go. We have to remove that off and then reattach it. Then down here is a couple plugs. There's one plug here that this piece just kind of plugs into, and underneath there seems to be one as well. So once we get this off and we get this off, it should be just giving it a good pull and it should come right out. So let's give that a go. Okay, now one thing I didn't check was the bolt size, so let me just check that quickly. It's a little bit bigger than a... Oh, we're good. So it's a 10 mil. So we're just going to take that off right now. Now we're going to look at this piece over here, the one I'm saying with the hose, and we'll see if there's a way to take this off without having to cut it. It looks like there's just some kind of manufacturer's tie down, but there may be a way to take that out and salvage it as best as possible. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this out first. That way I can see the underside, because if I see the underside on it here, I can kind of determine if it's something we can cut or if it's something we can salvage. So now, as you see, just popped it right out. That's perfect. I'll show you underneath after just to give you guys a feel for it. We're going to slowly move that out. We're going to take this out of here. There we go. This is pretty straightforward. Let's see. So it's just like basically a version of that other clamp we saw before. where you just have to kind of squeeze it right over here. So it's the same idea, but it's very small. So we're just going to do that here. Should be able to do it by hand. If not, we will get our little channel locks and do it. Alright, that's it. So that's the airbox. To show you guys underneath, you can see it was just two pieces that were holding it in place. And that's all that really was. And I'll show you how that looks under here. So you can see there's the one point right over there that was being held on. And then the other point is down there. Putting it together is pretty straightforward. K&N, of course, as always, has all the bolts, everything that we need to put it together. But there is some assembly. So let's go through some of that and see what's involved in putting this together. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on a couple key pieces. The first is we're going to be putting on our little rubber sleeve that goes directly onto the throttle body. We're also going to be taking these two rubber pieces out here, and they go in with these right here. These are going to be installed, right? Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is, before I put this on, now of course, as you saw, it's an awkward angle. It's going to go back on that same angle. I checked it out. There's no better way to put that on. So we put our first bracket on, and we're going to tighten that up kind of pre-tight a little bit. You do not want to go too tight on it, because you still got to get it all over the throttle body. Just enough so, especially considering how tight it is, it's minimal torquing. So I've done that a bit. We're just going to put this right on over the throttle body here. See if it's right over. Okay. And in my own worst way, I've done exactly what I say not to do. I put it a little too tight, but that's okay. Put that right over. And that should fit nice and snug, alright? So then, once snug, we're going to adjust the bracket just to where we need it. And then we're going to tighten it up. Hope you guys can see the angle there. Pretty straightforward. I'm doing it by hand first, just going to get it kind of situated nice. Then I'm going to grab my ratchet. Okay. And we're just going to tighten it up. Good, that's good. Now the next thing I gotta do is we gotta take these out. They should pull right out. We'll verify now and see. Pretty straightforward. Out and out. And now we've got to mount in these bad boys over here. So just gotta get the, and you need also, just to point out, you need a couple washers. It comes with everything you need, so you don't have to worry about it. It's got a rubber washer and a couple metal washers. You need that for each stud that you're putting in. Now from the looks of it here, it's the small one that goes in the back and the bigger one that goes in the front. The reason for that, there's a slight offset here. This one is slightly higher than this one, so that's why, of course, that you have the smaller one in the front and the bigger one in the back. So we're just going to put that here. Let's go hand tight for now. Okay, it's good and secure. And then we're going to go with the next one. Alright, so they're kind of prepped now, but we got to tighten them up. So, got to get a wrench, and unfortunately, in me getting all this stuff together, I forgot to get my wrench. You definitely cannot get a socket under there, so it's going to be a wrench for sure. I'll be right back. So first thing we got to do is we got to take this here. Now this is the bigger of the grommets. As you remember, I told you there's a small one and a big one, but there's also a couple extras. This is a bigger one, and this just mounts right down here. This is where that original bolt that we took off, and that just screws right in. No need for a nut, a washer, or anything. That just screws right in there, and eventually it'll just kind of spin at one point. I think it's just because it's, oh no, it did tighten. For a minute I was spinning a lot, but it tightened up that inch. So we're good there. That's all done. All right, so I kind of did this, but I'll show you what it is. So first thing, and the reason, I'll tell you why I did this first. So this bracket here came separately from this bolt. But the reason I put this on early, prematurely, before showing you guys, is because you have to get it on a specific way, as you can see here, where the twist is in the front. I didn't want to go in the video and honestly forget, and because it can go, you know, and it looks like the twist is pretty specific. But that kind of just goes on right on there. And it is a 10 mil that tightens it up. So that is going to hand tight. And we're good to go. Now before we deal with that, I'm just going to put this back aside for a second. And then we're going to mount this box on. This box, just so you know, is what mounts on over here. So that's what's going to eventually connect, so the old air that's coming in through here is going to feed right to your cold air intake and get all that nice cold air you want for your engine, right? Without that, you're not getting your power. So then this just mounts right onto here. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. It's not like a specific way. As you can see, it's just pretty straightforward. It's a box with 2 holes, and there's 2 holes that go right here. So we're just going to go and turn this up. And we're going to put the screws in. Actually, as I look at it here and realizing the material, it's probably a best bet to use a couple of washers that come with it. So I'm going to grab a couple of the washers. Just give me one very quick second. So right on the bolt, I'm going to put first a regular washer. I'm going to put a lock washer too. And again, it comes with all these pieces. So you're not going to be looking for anything. So that just goes right into here. We're just going to feed that hand tight. And then we're going to just drop it for a second. We'll do the same for the other side. Make sure you don't drop it. But you know how it is with these car stuff, that happens. What are you going to do, right? Okay, we're just going to put our washers on. And again, it's the same 10 mil, so we're just going to tighten that. Again, watching that you don't over tighten, but make sure it's good and firm. Grab our ratchet. So pretty much I went to hand tight, and I took the ratchet and I did another about a half turn, quarter turn. That's all you really need. So after that part is done now, we're going to flip this over. And this bracket I was showing you over here, right, remember that guy? That's got to mount in here. So we've got to mount it in such a way that when it's on here, it's got to be able to go into that bolt we put in the bottom. Remember that little rubber grommet we put right over there? It's got to be able to mount there. So when the box goes in, this piece is what attaches to the box to that rubber grommet. That kind of attaches all together. You can see because it's threaded here. So we're going to go ahead and put that on, and just again, a washer and a nut. Once it's hand tight there, we're just going to go ahead and use a wrench to hold it in place, and I'm just going to torque that. Okay, and it's all set. So now this is what goes into the airbox here. So that's eventually what's going to do, is this is going to mount right onto this part, and then it's going to attach to those rubber grommets, and then this goes onto here. So the next step we're going to do here is we got to insulate the box itself. Now K&N had sent us one piece of this rubber kind of tubing here that's got to go around the box itself. They sent it entirely. It was about 56 inches long, give or take. I didn't do the exact measurement on it. What they say you do is you got to cut it. So you need one piece that's 12 inches long. That's this one right here. And you got one piece that's 38 inches long. Now after I cut it, that did leave a little piece that was extra, but that's okay. As long as I'm following the measurements as per K&N, that's what we're looking for. So again, 12 inches and 38 inches. The 12-inch piece goes along the inside here, and I can see this may be a little bit tricky, but we're going to give it a try and see, so just bear with me, because we're basically putting this tubing, this rubber tubing, around a little hole. Right? Even at a 12-inch cut, that seems to be too much. Okay, as is in cars, sometimes things are not exact. Even with 12 inches, you can see it's still a little bit too big. So what we'll do is I'm going to cut that piece off right there. So as it turns out, we need a little bit less than 12 inches. Let us there. And in case you're wondering, so that I cut, I would say almost an inch off, maybe a quarter of an inch to an inch. And as you can see there, what this does is it provides a seal for when that hose goes in. So now we've got to also go around the edges as well. So again, we're starting over here just so you guys see. In retrospect, and this is interesting, it says to put this bracket on, but it would make sense to put the bracket on after, not before. So we're going to loosen that off, because why would you put that bracket on first if you got to put this seal on? So, as you can see, I'm loosening it off now. We'll back it out a little just to give us room to put that seal on, and then we'll put it back on after. Now you got to make sure that when you're putting the seal on, you got to push it a lot. What there is inside, you really can't see it here, but hopefully you can. It's got like a little bit of a metal that runs in through this lip. This is to hold it in. It's actually a clasp. So you really got to push it in to make sure it holds on tight and gives you that seal that you really are looking for. Just so you guys can see the progress as we're going along right now. It's all going on quite well. This angle is actually giving me a slight bit of a problem, but I'm just working by hand. Get it on there. Like I said, honestly, in this whole project, after reviewing it and kind of putting it all together, I feel this may be the hardest part of the whole thing. But mechanics curse, you don't want to say that until the project's done, right? The angle here, right over here, is kind of tricky too, because this is all one kind of straight line across, but this here flips from one type of angle to another type of angle, and that becomes even trickier to do while ensuring you still maintain a proper seal. So that's what's taking a little bit of time. And again, this piece looks to be too long, not a big deal at all. I'm just going to cut that last little bit off. Okay. As you can see here, interestingly enough, it doesn't go on an exact angle, and I think it's because of all the curves it's got to kind of accommodate for. I dare say, whereas K&N says to do it as one piece, I dare say actually may make more sense to cut these off into sections and put it all together as opposed to K&N's recommendation. But as this is just installing K&N as they're recommending it, this is how it comes out, this is how it looks. Still does its job, it's still sealed and looks the way it should. I just feel like maybe cutting it into the measurements, so measure it yourself and cut into sections may be a better bet. It'll give you a better seal and better angles. That's my recommendation though, but take that for what you will. Alright, so now we're going to put our now assembled box on. I've actually retightened this already. You saw that once in the video. I'm like, why am I going to show you that again? So all you do is retighten this back on and it's good to go. So now we're going to put this in. Now, as per K&N actually technically says you got to take off the whole front valance over here and the air intake over here, the tube, but you really don't have to do that. This here, you could just lift it up ever so slightly and slide that right on. Now, when you do, just bring it down and everything should mount up nicely. Now, one thing you'll have to do is this bolt right here. And make sure you're getting that right there. Remember we put that rubber grommet on? So what I did is I looked it over and I realized they've got to screw into each other, but you can't really screw them in if they're both tightened on. So we're going to try something different. I'm going to re-thread this one back on, the bigger one. I'm going to loosen this one out entirely. Not all the way though, just enough. And then I'm going to screw while maintaining the upper bolt, making sure that I'm constantly working it. I'm going to work that rubber and tighten it. And then once done, tighten it up. See? That worked perfectly. That's how you got to do it, all right? In my excitement to kind of move on to the tubing and get the air filter on and see how it goes, I actually forgot we've got to mount those two bottom screws. So we're going to do that here now. So let's actually set this up right here. Okay. So because we put those threaded rubber grommets underneath, it's just going to be a matter of screwing these in. There. Okay, so now that box is in there. The next thing we're looking at, of course, is prepping this up. The first thing I did that's different than what, for example, is set up with the with K&N, is they said to completely remove the MAF sensor. I didn't do that. I actually unscrewed it directly from the old housing. So I'm going to screw that back in here, but we'll take care of that after. We'll do that as one of the last steps, whereas as per K&N, it's one of the next steps is to put this in. So that's what I'm doing different. We're going to do that. But first thing we're going to do is we got to prep this. So it comes with this little elbow. This just screws right into here. There you go. So it's quite a bit of resistance. It was trying really hard to get that cross shred going. So you want to go nice and tight. Now, as per the angle there, it's going to sit here and it's got to be angled upward. So I'm going to back that out ever so slightly. So it's got to be up like that. Okay, so that's when you can put the hosing on. Now on the hose here, there's also this piece and this. So we're just going to push this right in. Like that. This eventually's got attached to that. So how that happens is this box you no longer need. Instead, you've just got to take this off. So again, we're going to get our channel locks that I have up here. I'm going to pull that hosing right off. So just release it out. Pull a little more. Bring it down. Once you bring it down part way, then it'll just come right off. There you go. So now once that's off, we'll just put that aside. And just like on the car, right, this side that mounted onto the box, right, that eventually is going to go right back onto here. This part that mounted onto the engine is where that's going back as well. That's going to go right back onto the engine when we're done. So we're going to put that on right there, and then we're going to reclamp it. And you do that by, again, taking your channel locks, squeezing it, and bring it right back up. Line it up, and reclamp it, right? The goal for that, in case you guys are not aware, is that when this tube comes, it's going to plug right into here, right? So we'll do that. But first thing, actually, before I put this on, let's get that tube in, huh? Shall we? So to get the tube in, we're going to put it around. Now, this part here may be kind of tricky to see. We're going to actually get that done here. So we're going to put this hose first. It's got to fit through this kind of rubber part right here. There you go. You see, right? And we're going to push that all the way. Now, before we put this on, we got to make sure we have our bracket ready. So we're going to take the bracket and we're going to put it around the rubber here, and then we're going to fit that right into there. Now this may take a little bit of gumption here. Let's just take a look. That's not going anywhere. All right. So now that's done, we're going to go ahead and put this on. So again, we're going to open up the channel lock. We're going to pull that apart. Let's get another channel here. That should be better. I'm just going to pull that back. Apply it right on here, right back to where it was initially. And then we're just going to retighten. That'll hold it in place. And then we're going to take the tube and we're going to fix that right on there. Okay. Then we're going to put our MAF sensor in. This remounts right in here. Make sure, I believe it only goes one specific way. There we go. Now we're going to take our screws and we're going to reapply. There. So that's done. We're just going to grab our screwdriver and we're going to retighten. There. There. All right, so we're just coming to the tail end now. There's really just two things left. The first thing is putting on the cone, and we'll do that right now. And after that, just putting back on the cover. The cone is pretty straightforward. Now, on the cone itself, they gave the bracket. I had to back this out a bit too. I kind of test fielded it out to see if it'll work, and it was a little too tight, so I backed it out a bit. From there, also again, make sure, now it came in a good spot to be able to tighten up, but make sure again that you're putting it, you don't want to put it on and it's under here, because that's the no-no. So you want to make sure it's in, right? So all we do from here is you're going to take the cone and you're going to slip it right onto the tube and adjust your bracket accordingly. Once that's done, just grab your ratchet. Hopefully one that's working better than this one. And then you just tighten it up. Okay, now that's on there. Okay, so now we're going to put back on the cover. Keeping in mind a few things. Remember that there's this piece here that's got to go onto that bolt right there. Once it's on that bolt there, then it's just a matter of putting the screws, which is 1, 2, 3. All right, so we're just going to move all our paperwork and stuff out of the way. You start by lining up. That there. Push down. Make sure it snugs in. Line up our holes. Then we grab our 3 bolts. And we're just gonna shred them in. Now, I have a general policy when it comes to tightening things up. It's something you do on car tires, and I do here too. When it comes to this here, I'm going to tighten up this bolt here, which is kind of the innermost on this side. Then I'll cross over here and I'll cross over here. Just a plastic cover, and it's really not a big deal. But at the same time, you don't want it to be bent or anything to happen or slight warping. It's just policy, right? So we'll go ahead. And then we're just going to grab our ratchet. And again, it just was about a half turn. Okay. Now that it's all done, the last thing we're going to do before we close off here today is we're just going to do a test fitment. And the only test fitment you really need to do is just make sure that the hood closes and it's not obstructed in any way. So, you take all the tools out of the way, make sure your area is clear. We're going to close off the hood. Then we come. We drop down and we're just going to check to make sure that it doesn't interfere in any way. All looks clear. So now we can drop it down. And you're all set. So again, thank you very much for watching. Again, this is the 2013 to 2016 Nissan Altimas, putting in a brand new cold air intake directly from K&N. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'll also, after we do some test driving with the car, I'll give you some feedback on that as well if you guys want it. Other than that, watch for the next video, and thank you very much for watching.